Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. So my name is Luiz Cosimo. I am a second year doctoral student here at SLU, Sweden, way up north here in Umeå. So my doctoral project itself has a bit more broad scope than what I will present today. I will be looking at different disturbance agents and different sensors and different monitoring scales from individual tree to landscape level. But today I decided to talk a bit more about the first study that I'm conducting and focus a bit more on the scope and the objectives and the problem itself, because we are still closing in the results. Just to talk a little bit about the problem, because I think we have quite a wide public here from different fields. So this little fellow here is the whole reason for my research at the moment, the European spruce bark beetle, or Ips typographus. So what it does is that it feeds on the inner bark of the Norway spruce tree, which we have a lot in Central Europe, but mainly also in Scandinavia. And it generates these types of damage here. So the adults, they carve holes in the bark, and then the female lay eggs, and the larvae during their development, they feed on the phloem of the tree and generate these beautiful galleries, but it has the potential of kill a whole tree within a single growing season. And generally, is a naturally occurring species here. Generally, it's not a big problem. We want it to be in the forest, a very special ecological agent in the forest, but the problem comes when you have these kind of situations here with very large outbreaks, especially after some abiotic events of disturbance, such as storm that has happened in the early 2000s, and then a few years ago, a very large drought event that we had in Sweden that led to a very large outbreak, and that's where we had problems with this species. And this is a problem from the ecological level. Then all of a sudden, you have a lot of dead forest, and also a very large socioeconomic problem here, because spruce is one of the main trees for producing wood here in Sweden. And then just between here in 2018 and 2022, we had more than 30 million cubic meters of spruce that were killed by the bark beetle. And this is always in the circles of discussion here in forestry for forest owners, companies, agencies, and a continuous concern as we have all the time some abiotic event of disturbance. So this is a good diagram that shows the infestation process, how it occurs. This is a general scheme for species that occur in the wood and the bark of trees, but we, in this case, are focused on the Ips typographus. So it occurs in the stem of the trees, and it stops the transportation of the nutrients in the phloem, so from the crown to the roots. So it has a bit of the challenge that is a delayed effect and not a direct effect on the tree crown, where we are getting our remote sensing data from. So it affects the roots, and it also opens wounds where fungi can enter and affect the wood itself. And generally have different stages that the trees go through when the adults first enter the bark, and then they start to cause the damage. We have the green attack, where the tree does not actually show any signs of disturbance in the crown. And then as it progresses, you have the needles become red until they all fall, and then we just have the branches. And the idea behind this project is that hyperspectral images can be better at showing us these signs of stress here, where we can maybe have some management to reduce the population before they emerge from the tree and they damage other trees in the surroundings. So some previous research, what led us here to work with this data set. So after this disturbance event of the extreme drought in southern Sweden, our group started working with initially with Sentinel-2 images, and it's a very interesting study that brings a lot of nice information. But there's the usual problem when we have while working with large pixels, that there's a lot of information about the stress of the trees that cannot actually capture sometimes with mixed pixels. And then sometimes a lot of things that you cannot explain, like a lot of problems with trees that are in different categories, from infested or healthy, showing very large differences from the beginning of the season. So uncontrolled differences that maybe are from different types of vulnerability, stress from previous years. And then this study just points us in the direction to look at the trees at a closer level. And that's why we started to work at the individual tree crown level using drone images. At first, we were using a multispectral drone system with a camera called Maya, and this camera had the same bands as the Sentinel-2 in the visible and the infrared region. So it would allow us to look at what the satellite was providing information for us, but at a very, very close level in the tree. So this was an experiment conducted in southern Sweden, where we have 24 plots with 15-meter radius. Then we had 4 drone flights there and conducted an inventory every week to see what was happening. And this was very interesting. That showed us how well we can detect these trees during the green attack, and also proposing some different vegetation indices that work better for this drone system and for our study sites, and reaching quite a high level of success of 90% of infestations detected at 10 weeks. And most of these trees had not shown any symptoms in the tree crown. But at the same time, this also made us wonder, because we are working with quite a limited spectral information here. So is there another way, some different wavelengths, some different methodology that we can actually have a better outcome for this? And that's where I started to think about working with hyperspectral drone images. So this study here was conducted by my supervisor when she was a visiting researcher at the Finnish Geospatial Institute. So this is a study from Finland, not from Sweden, and they did one of the best assessments so far in Scandinavia for hyperspectral drone images to detect bark beetle damage at early stages, especially pointing out to, instead of the red edge, which many studies use, to the green shoulder region, providing an actual better information on early signs of stress. But the problem with this study specifically is that it is focusing only on late summer, so it's not capturing the beginning of the development of the bark beetle in the forest, which starts in early spring. And also only 4 flights and only 29 infested trees were used. So this study pointed us in the right direction, but we wanted to do something more here to represent the conditions in Sweden, where we already had the studies with multispectral drone images, and trying to cover the whole growing season of the bark beetle. And that's where it brings me to the first study that I'm conducting now. So this is a very similar setting from the study that we did with multispectral images. So this is the region that we are looking at, is a state forest called Remningstorp, where we have a lot of research there. And then we have 4 different forest stands that we monitor there in 2023. Each of these stands, we had 6 plots with 15-meter radius, and then we controlled each of these trees between weeks 16 and 32, so between sometime in April and August, which is the critical time for bark beetle development. We installed bark beetle pheromone traps in the central tree to attract the infestation to these plots. And then in the end, we had 1,000 trees monitored, and 109 of these trees were infested, meaning that they had many bark beetle holes and they were discolored or dead by the end of the season or the start of the next year. And this is the data they collected. So we are using this Alta X drone. We are flying it at 100 meters height, so we can cover each line scan 70 meters swath. So this is the scheme for the data collection. So we did a field inventory every week between weeks 16 and 32. And then we monitor if we could find holes of bark beetle entrance in the bark of these trees, if we could find dust, which is a good sign of colonization that the bark beetle actually entered, when the tree crown presented any signs of defoliation or discoloration. So these are ground validation data. And our remote sensing data is from 2 different sensors. So one of them is the AFX10 camera, which provides data for us between 400 and 1,000 nanometers. With these specifications here, we can get 7 centimeter pixels and 224 channels, which is quite good for looking into detail of the spectral response of the trees. And the other sensor is working mainly in the sphere region, which is the FX17 between 900 and 1700 nanometers, a bit more coarse resolution, but still quite good for working with individual tree crowns, and 112 bands. So this is the general proposal of the project. We are still closing in the results, so I decided to to leave that to share with you when I have a manuscript published, and then you'll be able to read into more detail. But more or less, what we are most interested in answering and to learn from this project is how much can we gain in early detection using hyperspectral images instead of multispectral. And where we find these differences, how can we use that to define which are the best metrics, for example, vegetation indices and protocols on how to treat the data, how to retrieve and process the data, and which sensor specifications can we come up with to monitor with more success this bark beetle damage in the Swedish forest conditions, especially thinking about bringing this to a more practitioner kind of perspective, thinking about which customized sensor applications, specific satellites that we could use, and how can we incorporate these learnings into improving our monitoring systems at a larger scale. So ultimately thinking that we want to look at the very close individual tree level to learn, so we can use airborne, spaceborne systems, so we can look at the whole Swedish landscape at once and improve the management for this disturbance. So this study, it is funded by the ResNet EU project and the SLU Forest Dam Center. We have some time for questions now, but also feel free to contact me through my email or LinkedIn page. Also, our division has a LinkedIn page, so if you are interested in this kind of research, and you want to follow up whenever we have new publications and some news about our project and activities, just give us a follow there. And pretty soon, I hope this paper will be also available for you all to read. Yeah, thank you so much.